All Politics is Local with Jon Fetherston. An in-depth and comprehensive look at Massachusetts political news and current events.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, Jon Fetherston, joined today by legendary broadcasters Mikey Adams and Bill Smith. Hi, guys.
What's up, John?
Hi, John.
How's everything?
Well, you look as good remotely as you do when you're in the studio, just so you know. You look great.
It's a low bar. It's a low bar. Hey, guys, we're the No Hate podcast here, right? We don't hate anything.
Correct. Yep.
But I have a strong dislike for taxes. It's tax season.
I hate taxes.
And we live in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And things are tough.
Have you ever noticed that they have always want to tax and spend, but they never come up with any really creative solutions on how to save the money or maybe cut back on some of the expenses? Yet here we are.
It's a one-way street.
Yep.
It's a one-way street. It's a collection agency. It never gives back.
Tax and spend.
Right?
One party rule and one way to spend. Yes.
That's it.
Spend, spend, spend.
But this Massachusetts handle that the Commonwealth has earned and deserves at this juncture is easily explained when you think about each individual tax. Now, it's tax season. We all know that we have the personal income tax, it's federal tax, it's state tax. We know that Massachusetts, John, has a state income tax, something that at one time or another they didn't have, right? Or it was lower. But I have a list for you. Sometimes it's fun to go through lists, but this may
list
not
of
be.
the taxes we pay.
Taxes in Massachusetts. Okay, income tax varies, I think, between 5 and 9%, depending on how much you make. So that's a lot of money, okay, added to the federal. Sales tax is 6.25%. Correct me, gentlemen, if I'm wrong on any of these numbers. 6.25% sales tax, which, by the way, sends a lot of money to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And out of the revenue stream of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Property tax, 1.04%. That's an ongoing, and that's also based on how much do you own? What's it worth?
Mm-hmm.
Corporate tax, John, is 8%, right? I believe.
8%, yep.
The millionaire's tax, if you get over a certain amount of money, I can't remember I'll never hit it myself personally, but it's an additional 4%. And that's why we're getting nothing but the worst athletes coming to Boston. The athletes make the big money. The inheritance, I believe, is if your inheritance is worth over $2 million, then you get hit, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that's not hard to do with property being the value that it is in Massachusetts. There's a restaurant meal tax. There's cannabis tax, which is 10.75%.
Wow.
Plus if you're a local municipality, you can add another, 3% to that for the dispensaries in your locality. Gambling tax, 5% of anything you make over $5,000, right? On a gambling basis.
That's what I've heard.
There's really nothing they're not reaching in your pockets for. As a matter of fact, Massachusetts, state-wise, there are 50 states. Massachusetts is ranked 41 out of 50 as far as tax liability for the individual. And listen to these states that are worse than Massachusetts. This shows you the kind of league we're in here. Only Hawaii, Vermont, Minnesota, Washington State, Maryland, Connecticut, California, New Jersey, and New York are worse. Now, what do you notice about those states that I just listed?
They're all democratically run.
That's right.
They're kind of blue, aren't they?
Very blue. Very blue.
So we're at the top of the stack of blue states at position 41, but that doesn't mean we're not getting screwed on taxes on an annual basis. What do you think?
Well, I think if you look at 41, you say, oh, we're not the worst. But then you add in tolls, you add in trash bag fees, you add in bus fees for your kids. You buy all of your kids' school supplies that the schools used to provide. You add in, a sports fee if your kid wants to play, basketball or wants to be in the chess club. All of the fees and taxes, we shoot probably to number one. We're probably right at the very most expensive state in the country to live in. And you have to ask yourself, why? What are we getting? What do you see? On your drive to the studio today, how many potholes did you hit? How many bridges did you drive over that probably aren't in the best shape that you want? you really have to start questioning, like, what are we getting for our taxes here?
Well, then they go ahead and they complain about Diana DeZoglio, who wants to audit everything so she can uncover where the waste, the fraud, and the abuse are. And they're fighting tooth and nail to hide the truth. Now, why do you suppose they
Even though the voters want that?
The voters did overwhelmingly. They voted for it. What's the deal behind
Bill,
that, John?
it's got to be so bad that they will actually go to court to fight to not to be transparent.
That's right.
Yeah.
What are they hiding? How bad is it really?
It's like the Musk thing, you know, really, honestly, because they don't want the audit, and there's a reason they don't want the audit. If they were on the up and up and there was nothing, no hanky panky going on, they'd say, "Yeah, go ahead, audit me." You know, no problem.
It's crazy. They don't want the audit, and they also want to return these violent criminals that we had deported, saying that they didn't get their due process. It's just crazy how they're supporting all the things that are destructive rather than constructive. I don't understand that.
You know, people are working so hard, either in Massachusetts or on the federal level, to not have somebody look at the books.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like you mentioned the audit in Massachusetts, but then we mentioned Doge. People are turning violent because Elon Musk is exposing fraud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the people that are getting mad about it, how rich have they gotten about being part of this fraud? And it's not just Democrats; it's even the Republicans. You have to ask, like, where are the Republicans on this?
Yeah,
like,
they're being awfully quiet.
There needs to be some reform. Yeah.
And Elon Musk said himself, he said, you know, the people that are kvetching the loudest about this are the ones that are the fraudsters. And Maura Healey puts out I saw this today, puts out a tweet saying, Trump is taking food from the mouths of our children in the Commonwealth because he cut some program by $3.4 million. I tweeted back, Massachusetts spends $170 million a year on school lunches. I don't see starving children. I see obesity rates at 17% of our youth. If they're not eating, how do these kids get fat? Seriously, I mean, if the food's not available and no one's paying for it, it's just ridiculous. And of course, it's the hero-villain thing that Maura Healey's doing. I swear she's trying to run for some bigger office because she keeps going after Trump, and she can't even control the nasty, bad stuff that's going on in her own state.
I saw a psychologist today on X, and he was his question was, how can you tell when people are dangerous? And he said, you will run into people who will either commit a crime or some type of personal offense against you, and what they do is they come up with an excuse and a reason why it was done, rather than simply apologizing and owning what they had done. They're basically holding themselves accountable. So when you look at all these Massachusetts politicians, they blame everybody for everything else that they do. It's always someone else's fault or the fault of some other program or principle or somebody else's idea. And it seems to be like it's a psychosis.
Yeah.
It sounds strange. I'm no doctor, but
keying a Tesla? I mean, that does what?
And putting a Nazi insignia on there. What the hell is that all about?
It's out of control, John.
You know, if there's a kid that needs a free lunch, the three of us are going to move heaven and earth to make sure that kid gets a free lunch. But what Maura Healey did is she took it and made free lunches for everybody. You know, we're of the age where our kids didn't get free lunch because it was our job to, you know, pay for our kids. When I went to school, and probably when you guys went to school, we didn't get free lunches because it was our parents' responsibility. Now, listen, if there's a kid that needs a free lunch or a free breakfast, I'm all for helping them. But to make a blanket policy that every kid eats for free in the schools,
right? You
don't need that.
Well, it's like college for free, free college for everybody, free. Joe Biden wanted to pay back people's college debts. I don't know where these people think the money's coming from, but I know that there's a $36 trillion debt, so it's coming from somewhere.
I wanted Joe Biden.
It's the most expensive thing in the world, something that's free, you know? The most expensive thing you're ever going to do is, you know, do a free program. Now, granted, we're all going to help kids in need and people in need and, you know, veterans in need. Of course, that's what we do. That's the foundation of America. But not everything has to be free. And then to go on to social media and complain about it. You're
Yeah.
going to complain about a program that lost a couple $1 million. Yeah, it's a big hit, but let's talk about the billions of dollars if you spent on the migrant program with
Right.
no exit ramp.
It's a vote buying thing. It always was. It was, when Biden came out with that free college thing, I'm saying we're buying votes of the college students. Everybody knows that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, John, you're becoming very famous nationally for your rising voice in the political community. As we know, all politics is local.
Yep.
But Jon Fetherston, you've been on national newscasts everywhere with very valid points you're making about what's wrong in the Commonwealth. How do you get so famous so fast?
Because I know you guys, that's
There it is.
Sure.
because I know you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to talk about the lunacy of the Healy hotels. I mean, Mike, you've been to the Healy hotels, and
Yep.
Bill, I hope that you haven't. But
No, but I've heard.
I mean, Mike, you've seen firsthand, the lunacy that goes on in these hotels. You don't probably see the crimes that I have seen in the Healy hotels, but the amount of sex trafficking, kid trafficking, EBT card fraud. I famously reported the incident where the man impregnated his own daughter inside
Awful.
one of the Healy hotels. And the girl had the baby back in July. So now you have Massachusetts taxpayers are paying now to have Ronald Joseph incarcerated. His 14-year-old daughter now is living in a DCF shelter, and the baby is living in an adoption agency. So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is paying for all three of those, and to find out that they should have never been here in the first place because the Biden administration allowed them to come here illegally under asylum protection. And now, technically, by the letter of the law, on April 24th, they're going to be asked to leave the country. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that because Trump is saying that by April 24th, you have to self-deport. And if they don't, then what's going to happen?
Well, you know what, John? Anybody that becomes the father and the grandfather in the same family should be deported, and right away. That's just sickening. You had a guy try to crash through the wall at the Holiday Inn in Marlboro and crashed in the wall right where your office was. He was trying to kill you with his car. I mean, that's crazy.
All over diapers, because he was signed up to receive EBT card benefits, and when he received his EBT card benefits, we told him that he no longer could get the free stuff at the shelter, and he felt that he was being targeted, and that he was going to send me a message by driving his car through my office. So
therefore, you must die.
Yeah, right. You're doing your job, and he's stealing from the community, and he wants to crash the car into your office and take care of business. That's ridiculous.
Call me naive or just politically ignorant. But what I can't figure out, on one hand, you've got things like common sense, and then you've got chaos on the other side. I don't understand what is motivating Maura Healey. God bless her; she's probably a nice woman. And the same with with Michelle Wu. What is motivating them to keep these people here? They cost too much. They're causing problems. They don't assimilate into our culture. What do we do about this? And what is the reason? I don't understand what's driving these people.
the reason why is this is a power play by the Biden administration and endorsed by the Healey administration to bring voters to keep their power position. Plain and simple. I saw it with my own eyes in the migrant shelters. First thing you would do is they would come in, you would sign them up for Social Security because they were here under asylum protection.
Yeah.
Even though 95% of the people who go through the asylum process never get asylum. So they all got Social Security numbers, and that is the key. They all got Social Security numbers. Then they were eligible for mass health, EBT cards, and most importantly, they were enrolled as voters.
Oh.
That is the key. The key is to enroll them as voters. Now, a lot of them did not vote in the last election, but now they're all registered and can vote.
Mm-hmm.
And because they paid, the government paid for everything for free for them for years, and we'll talk a little bit more about home base here in a minute. Now they have a loyalty to vote the way the government tells them to vote.
Sure, of
Vote
course.
Democratic.
Or else
You
they
see
cut the
what happened in
benefits.
Wisconsin last night. They're going to redistrict Wisconsin because now a liberal judge, because they elect their Supreme Court justices in Wisconsin, now they're going to redistrict Wisconsin. They're going to pick up 2 more Democratic House seats in Wisconsin. It's all about ensuring the vote, ensuring the process to get more people to vote the way they want them to vote. That's what it all is. It's not about humanitarian efforts. It's about keeping power.
Well, I thought maybe we could take a look at some, because, John, a very hardworking guy when it comes to this exposing truths. Maybe we could play some of the highlights of some of your appearances on maybe, Fox? Were you on Fox News?
They're not.
And a fight is brewing in an escalating battle over sanctuary city policies. The White House is accusing Mayor Michelle Wu of Boston of protecting criminal migrants after she appeared to double down during her State of the City address. Let's bring in Jon Fetherston. He is a former migrant shelter director in Massachusetts. John, it's good to be with you. You ran a shelter in Marlborough, which is about 20 miles west of Boston. You described the whole system as one big, colossal mess. What was your experience at that shelter?
Well, just like I said, John, it's just pure chaos. The lawlessness that has been allowed by, the government officials like Mayor Wu and Governor Maura Healey, it's chaos in these shelters. There's no checks and balances. It's a lawless society. The shelters are set up for failure to even fail the migrants at itself. And public safety is 100% at risk. And President Trump was 100% correct, calling Mayor Wu a radical with her policies of her sanctuary cities. Government's first responsibility is to protect the vulnerable people. And Mayor Wu and Governor Healey are not protecting the vulnerable citizens and migrants in Massachusetts, and it's disgraceful.
Things got heated. Joining us now are residents from these cities and states, Kata Truss, Priscilla Ron, and Jon Fetherston. Good morning to you all. John, I'll start with you. As a former migrant shelter director from Massachusetts, what is your reaction to the mayor of Boston's testimony yesterday?
Mayor Wu continues to embarrass Boston and Massachusetts with her performance. She paid lawyers $650,000 to coach her up yesterday to put on that pathetic performance. And I will tell you, as a migrant shelter director, that every woman and child in Massachusetts is at risk because of the policies of Mayor Wu and Governor Maura Healey.
Yeah, and the mayor said yesterday, she was asked, in the city of Boston, how much do you spend on illegal immigration? And she responded, we don't ask about immigration status and delivering citizen services. She didn't know the answer to that question. Is that acceptable?
No, it's totally not acceptable. And we're 3 years into the migrant crisis here in Massachusetts. The legislature continues to pass funding to fund what we refer to as the Healey hotels with no accountability, and more importantly, no exit strategy to find permanent housing for the migrants. And the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has spent over $4 billion on this crisis, and there's no plan for housing for the migrants. And ultimately, the Commonwealth is failing the migrants. It's just totally unacceptable. And other budgets are being stressed in the Commonwealth. School budgets, public safety budgets are being stressed. And, this lunacy needs to stop.
Illegal immigrant criminals back into the streets instead of turning them over to ICE in the first place.
But here's the problem. Mayor Wu should be embarrassed. Governor Healey should be embarrassed. You have to bring in an outside agency to clean up your streets. So number one, you should be embarrassed. Mayor Wu doubled down in her city-to-city speech and says that she's going to stop Tom Homan. Well, she quite obviously didn't stop Tom Homan. And we all owe Tom Homan a debt of gratitude and thanks for coming to Massachusetts and making us all safer.
Now,
That's the new thing now. That's Trump's the king. They went through the
Oligarchy.
First, oligarchy. Then everybody was weird. Now he's the king. I mean, God, I saw Michelle on The Daily Show. I think it was The Daily Show. And I wondered, what is she going to say? What's she going to do? How will she appear? And I was expecting her to be sort of authoritarian, a little condescending, just full of business. But instead, here's this charming, articulate, well-spoken woman with a good sense of humor. And I thought, where's the disconnect here? How can this person believe what she believes and do what she's been doing? again, it's destructive and not constructive. But it's interesting how she presents one side to the public,
Right.
but when it comes to making policy, it's crazy.
Well, and John, she said no one can tell Boston how to take care of its own. The people that she's giving sanctuary to are not Boston's own. These are people who came in here illegally for free stuff and increased the housing demand and caused crime in the street. You know, this is not our own. This is not Boston people. This is people that are just shipping them in and saying, here, pay for this.
You know, it's disgraceful. I mean, they're making her look like the sympathetic figure, and just like Maura Healey's now making the talk show circuit, trying to come across as funny, likable, articulate. But as Bill said, these are not who Michelle Wu and Maura Healey are. Match up Maura Healey's words with her actions. They never match.
No.
And you see that with Wu now as well, too. They're making Wu out to be a superstar, and it's going to be real interesting. Are they going to make Wu the next AOC of the Democratic Party? Because they quite obviously are marketing Wu to go on to national politics, which I strongly encourage, because once the bright lights get shown on Wu, she will, melt away, I think. I mean, what do you guys think?
It's hard to say. The bright light of publicity and the notoriety of it all. What happens on the other side is people start looking for things about you, because that's just the nature of politics.
It can only work in Boston and Massachusetts the way it is now.
And they'll dig out stuff, and and then we'll have to deal with that and listen to the spin on, again, blaming someone else for the problem they created rather than taking accountability for it.
Now, John, what's the story on the new arrivals, the guests that we have in the Commonwealth from all over the place, Central America and Haiti, who've been living in the hotels? What's going on with them now as Maura Healey claims to be reducing the population in the hotels? Where are they going, these people? They're not leaving.
No. What the public needs to do is they need to do a Google search on a thing called home base. Home base is an incentive that the taxpayers are funding through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where the state is paying landlords up to $30,000 over 2 years to subsidize the migrant shelters' rent to get people out of the hotels and into permanent long-term housing. So let's just, for simple math, let's say the rent is $2,000 a month. Home base will subsidize $1,000 a month. So they'll make the rent $1,000 a month for up to 2 years of subsidies to get people in. So the landlords take that as like, oh, okay, guaranteed rent. I know I will have it. And a lease is signed and it's a family of 4. All of a sudden turns into a family of 9.
Yeah.
The water bills are going up. The electric heating bills are going up. The landlords feel like they've been misrepresented. So now Healey is now saying that we'll do it for 3 years. But still, what's going to happen? A lot of these migrant families are coming over here. They don't know English. So at best, they're making minimum wage,
right,
or they're working under the table.
And
what's going to happen when that rent subsidy runs out? What's going to happen to those apartments? You're going to have mass evictions.
And plus, what happens to the neighborhoods into which they're introduced? These folks, the schools, the hospitals, the traffic, the economy of that area is changing. It may be subtle, but when you have a school system and suddenly there are a whole bunch of kids dumped into the school system, then you have to hire a teacher or 2 or 3 and some interpreters and so on, and some mental help for some of these kids. And guess who's paying for that? The town's property taxes are going to go up, correct?
There's the old thing about if you import the third world, you become the third world. I remember the first time I heard that, and I thought, well, no, we'll just take care of our own, and we'll just keep living the way we're living and doing what we're doing. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You have to accommodate these people, and things gradually, standards go down, everything goes down, and prices go up to accommodate everybody who's getting everything for free.
Wow. Well, what you're going to see, though, is because none of the migrant hotels are in Boston, because they purposely did that because they didn't want to affect tourism, and they didn't want to, take up valuable hotel rooms, during the tourist season. Mm-hmm. So all of the migrant shelters are in the suburbs. And Mike, you've seen this, out in the Metro West area. So now they're finding housing and they're going farther west because it's more affordable. So you're going to go west of Worcester to now start housing people. So the impact in a big school system like a Marlboro or Worcester, you bring in 30 more kids, the impact isn't that huge because you've got the bandwidth to accept those. But as you go farther west and you have a school system that might have a couple hundred kids, and all of a sudden you're bringing 30 new kids to the system, it's going to overwhelm school systems. It's going to overwhelm, like you said, public safety, ambulances, fire, police. It's going to have a downstream effect on, municipal budgets that people aren't seeing right now until it's too late.
And to what end? And the reason, obviously, that Massachusetts gets the brunt of this, or a big portion of it, is because of the right to shelter law, John. We've been talking about this for a long time. Being the only state in America that has the right to shelter indicates that when you come here, you have a roof over your head, you get fed, EBT cards, the whole thing. But no other state has it. So if I'm a homeless refugee and I'm living in Connecticut or New York or anywhere that's within a driving distance of Massachusetts, I'm going to go to Massachusetts for the free stuff.
I had many conversations with a lot of migrant families. Why did you come to Massachusetts? Well, they told us at the border, Massachusetts had the best deal. Everything is free.
There it is.
Well, that's the reason why you came here? Yeah, we didn't come here for the weather. We didn't come here because we had friends. And we didn't come here for the jobs. We came here for the free stuff.
Yeah.
And they would literally tell you that. And you really can't question that judgment. I mean, you want to go to Iowa, or you want to go where
I would do
nothing's
the
free?
same
And
thing. If I were homeless, I would do the same thing, of
Right.
course, because the best deal's
Right.
here. But not only that, but when they get here, these folks, and, I understand why they're here, because their country's terrible or with bad stuff going on. I get that. But does that mean that Maura Healey has to allow everybody that comes here to get a driver's license and then, in effect, become a legitimized voter? I mean, the plan sounds like exactly as you described, John, that's the whole final analysis reason for this is voters.
And then they get included in the census as well.
Right?
Of course, because they have Social Security numbers. They're legally here, quote unquote, legally here.
Now,
Now, did you guys see that an ICE agent has been held in contempt of court because he did an arrest of somebody that ICE was trying to pick up? Did you guys see that?
I did see that. I thought it was brilliant. And what they want to do now is let the illegal go and arrest the ICE agent.
Is that the Somerville thing?
It makes no sense. I think it is Somerville. Well, they got him in court.
Somerville, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought
Now,
that was
there's a big difference between not helping and helping or getting in the way. And, Maura Healey will sit there and say, Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state. But just by what Bill described, you're going to throw the ICE agent in jail and let the criminal walk just because it might hurt somebody's feelings? I mean, what are we doing here?
That sounds like Donald Trump's next pardon will be that guy. I mean, doesn't that make sense to you? Well, there's obviously more to come.
It doesn't matter your political affiliation. I mean, nobody wants criminals walking the streets, right?
Supposedly.
Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, your state senator, Jamie Eldridge. I mean, what are we doing, Jamie Eldridge? Like, what are we doing?
Johnny, let me put you on the spot.
You're protecting criminals. How many times did I call your office and say, hey, we got to help this poor 13-year-old girl who got impregnated by her own father, and you didn't return phone calls? And then he sits there and says that, if Tom Homan comes back to Massachusetts, he'll confront him. No, he won't.
No, he won't.
He doesn't have the courage
And you
to do
can
that.
talk is cheap. You can talk all you want about, and take a position verbally. What are you going to do about it? What kind of result can we expect from you in a position of authority to take care of the problem? And that's what's been going on for months with the homeless shelters, John, as you know better than anybody, and I'm glad you're bringing attention to it on a national basis because, with all due respect, I love Massachusetts for the state that it is, but the politics, they got to reorganize and rethink and be smarter about what they're doing in Massachusetts because we're not stupid here. We can see what they're doing.
John, let me put you on the spot. If you were suddenly the governor, Governor Jon Fetherston,
I like that.
what would your first 100 days look like?
All right, day one. Let's go 100 days in a row.
Yeah, that's right, day one.
I would close the Healy hotels. I would close the Healy hotels and set up a plan, to restore order with it. I mean, because it's a lose-lose situation because there's no plan. My first 100 days, I'd close the Healy hotels. I would start fixing the infrastructure in Massachusetts, and I would start, really looking at the schools. Now that the Trump administration has shut down the Department of Education, I would make Massachusetts. Massachusetts has always hung its hat on that. We have good education, and we do. Massachusetts has had quality education. I will tell you, in the last 10 years, that quality has eroded, and it's not as good as it used to be. And we have to return to quality education and supporting small businesses in Massachusetts, because as Mike mentioned earlier about the millionaire's tax, why would a big business ever come to Massachusetts? Exactly. Why?
You're going to be penalized.
It's too expensive to do business in Massachusetts. We've lost our competitive edge, and we're still lucky that there are so many Fortune 500 companies in Massachusetts. But as times contract, you're going to see more and more of them sneak out of the state because it's too expensive to do business in Massachusetts.
Two things about the hotel crisis that we went through. First of all, we have a housing crisis is what we have here in Massachusetts now, which has been, made worse, substantially worse by the influx of all these new visitors. I call them guests. But those hotels themselves, the actual physical buildings, the one in Marlborough for sure, and some of the ones I've been to, they're not ever going to be the same. They have to be kind of like raised and rebuilt because they're just a mess. Is that not true, John?
Oh, I can just speak from experience of being in some of these. You're just going to have to tear them all down and redo them. And here's the thing. I mean, if Bill's thing, if I was the governor, I'd tear them down. And you hear the Healy administration right now talk about, they're champions of affordable housing. Name me one affordable housing unit that's been built. There hasn't been. It's all, fluff and, posturing. If you're really going to invest in, affordable housing, and affordable housing has different connotations that a lot of people don't understand. Not all affordable housing is Section 8. Not all, affordable housing is homeless people. A lot of it can be made for, teachers and, police officers and people who work in the government and stuff like that. But until there is a true investment in building housing, in building inventory stock, I mean, there's where there's a will, there's a way to get affordable housing done. And everybody talks about it. Republican, Democrat, libertarians, they all talk about it. Nobody ever does it. There hasn't been an affordable housing complex, a grand scale built in Massachusetts in more than 30 years. Right. And that's totally unacceptable.
Well, if you do somehow, some way, the housing topic is one we could do an entire all politics is local broadcast about. But Bill Smith and I are sitting here with, we're a couple of handsome old guys. If you do become governor, could you make me the cannabis commissioner?
We could do a whole show about how dysfunctional the cannabis commission is. So I think we would want to bring in a smart, intelligent guy like yourself and talk about that.
And we'll make Bill Smith the chancellor of common sense, because he's a very, like you, John, very common sense guy. Brilliant, but doesn't talk about it. He doesn't brag about how smart he is.
Right. I'm just glad that Bill could join us, and Bill is going to be joining us on a permanent basis here on All Politics is Local. I think it's a great quality addition.
Let's do it.
We're going to be signing autographs one of these days.
There you go. We'll have an autograph signing with. And then Mike, I do think we have to get Bill Lee on the podcast here soon too.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about the other viewpoint of the world? He's just a little bit left of Che Guevara.
Yeah.
But a good guy.
And he's brilliant too. But he's just not. He's not. This is a guy who's played baseball in Cuba and Russia. He's played in China. He gave up a home run. It didn't go over the wall. It went over the Great Wall. Oh. So for the next episode,
that's going to do it for another edition of All Politics is Local. That's Bill Smith, Mike Adams. I'm Jon Fetherston. We'll talk again real soon.